Signs of the Southland, Monday, February 6, 2023. We are live here at Wild Heaven Brewing at West End with a live studio audience of two, Mr. Andrew Chow.
Wow.
Tech
and
legend.
his friend, his roommate, Cody Adams. Welcome, everyone, to our first live broadcast. How does it feel? How does it feel? Gentlemen, Mr. Purdy, thank you for hosting us today.
I mean, we're clearly slammed tonight, so we had plenty of space. No, it's fun. We wanted to do this at some point, so
Jack,
finally,
I've got a
finally
question for you.
Yes.
Does this make Wild Heaven the official brewery of Scions of the Southland podcast?
It does. I think I did text my dad. I'm like, hey, if you haven't had a podcast recorded here, you are now a sponsor, whether you like it or not, for the flat fee of free. Full disclosure, my dad runs the place, so that's why we're able to have our fun here. And
Not an ad, but also an ad.
oh, it's totally an ad. This is outright an ad.
And while we're making free ads, the new Black Cherry, right?
Black Cherry emergency drinking beer.
It's pretty good.
That's what I had tonight.
Me too. I'm kind of a fruity beer kind of guy. So
Emergency drinking beer has been around,
but not like over the top, you know.
No, that was the thing. I was worried that the beer would be too fruity. We've made some fruity beers that were just, and there's like milkshake IPAs that exist, and like cobbler beers I've had that just tasted like you just had a liquefied pie. This did not taste like that. But yeah, I've tasted some that are like that from other breweries that I'll leave nameless. But yeah, no, it hits the spot.
Brewery rivalries.
It's almost
but
more
Hey,
savage.
that could have been from anywhere in the country.
Anywhere can brew an IPA, right?
Yes,
But,
in theory. Can you make a good one?
They're called Anywhere Pale Ales, I hear.
Yeah,
Is that what they are?
I am gonna gas up our guests here before we dive in. Both of them, not legends of the flats, but both with
Look, give it to him.
both with plenty of experience playing football and baseball. Sadly, we will talk about neither sport tonight, so they'll just have to deal with it, just like
We're
you
at least
all,
talking about
you
the
know.
diamond tonight, but a much smaller.
It's a
one.
much smaller diamond. We'll get to that. We are doing a softball preview tonight. Let's start at the top. Home Field is dropping a new Georgia Tech collection later this week.
Yes.
I think tomorrow, by
Wednesday.
the time that you hear this.
Yeah.
February 7th, yes. They sent me 2 pieces early with a T-shirt that just has Buzz on the left chest, and then the navy blue long sleeve tee with a lot of logo involved. There's just a lot of logo. It says Yellow Jack. It says Georgia Tech. Is that what it says? It says
Mostly
it
mostly
says a lot
logo.
of words, and it has Buzz on it in the correct old gold colors, which I enjoy.
No.
But yeah, no, that was nice. They were nice enough to send us some merch ahead of time of the drop. I really like the joggers of the stuff that they dropped.
You can't. The thing is, you can't have a special name for those joggers, like
wish
like
Buzz
the
was
sad
on them.
doggers.
Or the wreck.
You could do
Imagine wreck
boggers
joggers.
for Buzz, but
That would've been
just
great.
with jackets, like it's just joggers again.
They could, yeah. There was a lot that could have had. I think there was a lot of ways that it could have gone that it didn't go, but nevertheless, it's still merch that's viable.
There's also a quarter zip in there because
Yes.
this is a quarter zip state.
The,
I'm
the,
told.
the final four shirts probably the
That
one
one's
that
really
caught
cool. I really like
caught
that
my
one.
eye the most. But I'm a sucker for the retro stuff, and when we get to the podcast business in the middle, I am eager to talk about some of the things coming from this fine podcast's actual sponsor. So yeah,
Why don't we get to literal podcast business? Let's start at the Zelnak Center and McCamish Pavilion. Women's basketball beat number 15 NC State 68-62. Tonie Morgan picked up another ACC Rookie of the Week honor, her second in a row. She posted a 17.6 rebound, 10 assists
Yes.
line.
Crazy good
You
stuff.
you need to give me the actual stats. You know I'm not good at numbers. And Nerea
Wait a
Hermosa
second.
finally found her footing.
Yeah.
14 points,
aren't
7
you
rebounds.
the guy that runs the college football analytics
That's the joke.
website?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just making sure. Just making sure it's all out there.
I will say, and I think all three of us noted this while the game was going, the NC State Wolfpack ran some of the most heinous end-game sets
There was not
I
much
think
going their way at the end there.
I have
at
ever
all.
seen in my entire life.
It was like they practiced to be bad. That's how good at being bad at that end game set they were.
It was bad. They went empty on 3 or 4 possessions in the last minute,
Yeah,
and
they had a
and
shot
they were
to make
all like not just empty. They didn't get a shot up on 3 of those
No,
possessions.
it was bad. They were just turning the ball over
This is
pretty
awful.
willy-nilly
This
at the
ain't
end
your
there.
fraternity bigs NC State team. I wouldn't say granddad because it's only
No.
been like 2 or 3 years, but the Cunane
Cunane and Perez.
Perez, yes,
Yeah.
that's the other.
Not having her. Yeah, not having. It was still a little bit of a bully ball game, despite the fact
Oh,
the
yeah.
2 biggest bully ballers in Kubai and Kune not being there. Who did get drafted one after the other in the
Yep.
in WNBA draft last year, but it was interesting to see it kind of be similar, but also nice that we like had a shot, unlike last year where like it
Yeah.
was pretty obvious early that game was not
And-
going to go our
And
way.
this is the second Georgia Tech upset, if you will, of NC State in recent memory. I think it is worth noting that we did go and beat, probably a better NC State team on the road in Reynolds Coliseum when they were a top 3 team. I believe, Francesca Pond was on that team, so that would have been right before the pandemic
Before my
set in.
time, okay.
The
But,
pandemic.
Oh, don't put that
Boo.
evil on her.
Oh my goodness.
But
I won't, but that was mean in retrospect.
yeah, but no. So NC State's a really good team. They've been a consistent program that whole time, but really shows that Nell can get her team up and win the big one. And I think it's kind of the game that we've all been waiting for them to have this year.
They've been steadily getting there, closer and closer. Nell, like even some of those losses where when they were in the losing streak, she was like, "There's the positive signs were still there. They were still practicing really hard, away, off anywhere no one can see. But like they never really stopped believing in the team, unlike another Tech basketball team that we might think has stopped believing in their ability."
I was having a good night.
I'm sorry about that. Anyways, back to women's basketball, much better team. They were right there, and while they did lose to Miami, like they were still like right there. They haven't won a road ACC game yet, but I don't think that exactly matters to me anymore. Also.
Miami plays a brand of basketball probably most similar to the previous Tech regime. Big, physical. Low
they were
scoring.
big. We had a lot of trouble getting any points in the paint whatsoever, and they killed us in rebounds.
Without the tallness of Kubaya,
it was rough.
I think
yeah.
Francesca Pond helped us out there too, just having size, even though she was more of a shooter forward type than a center. The numbers speak for themselves with 51-25 on the glass, and they were in it at the end, but
yeah, still, it was a 2-point game with under a minute to go, despite being
then-
horribly out-rebounded.
And then
that happened. But like, still, at any point in this particular season, would you have taken down 2 with under a minute to go on the road?
oh yeah,
and that's a
that's the
good.
thing.
That's a
good
pretty
Miami
good
team.
Miami
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
right? One of the Cavenders is doing really well, despite
They both have beaten us up this year. Like,
despite like the public's reservations about how good those players actually are. And besides their NIL deals, they've been very productive.
yeah.
I will say that this team, all it needs to do is finish above 500, and they'll be in the WNIT, and that's fine enough for a rebuild year, and I think better than I might have expected 3 or 4 weeks ago. So just keep in the mix, beat the teams you got to beat, and the NC State win's a good win, and it's something to build on. Team's relatively young, despite how much experienced senior or transfer talent they've got in the door.
That brings up a good point, and this is something I was talking with an ACC student manager about offline. Is a bunch of these teams have had to completely retool how they play basketball to account for major departures. Like you can see it with Tech, not having Kubai. You can see it with NC State. They don't have Perez and Cunane. You talked about that earlier. Haley Van Lith is basically a one-woman show at Louisville right
pretty
now.
much.
Yep.
And so your more traditional men's basketball powers, like Duke and Carolina, who have more complete teams, it seems, rather than one.
You're saying in
one
women's
shows.
basketball
In
right
women's
now.
shows.
Okay.
Just trying to make a relationship there. But those teams have started to come up and be at near the top of the conference just because they have more team rather than individual dependence.
Yeah, and I think it's something that that student manager may want to call Jimmy Boeheim to consult with him about the changes seen in ACC basketball.
Boeheim is too busy complaining about
Yeah,
NIL
we're dropping the
to
Boeheim
anyone who
name
would
now.
listen.
Like that's what we're gonna do that now. My goodness.
Oh,
Oh.
I just got some breaking news. Can I break some news?
Holy crap.
Again, treat this with a grain of salt, but apparently the CRC Aquatics Center has a small fire going on.
Oh my goodness. I'm
All
glad I
I
didn't
know
swim
is
there
that-
today.
How does an aquatic center
Wow.
get set on fire?
I
That's
don't-
interesting.
I
My
don't
guess
know.
there is a chemical room by the auxiliary
like
pool.
the giant train crash that's currently still burning in Ohio
I know.
right now.
Oh, they had to do a controlled burn on that. Now we are way off the rails,
Oh
just
my
like
goodness.
that train.
Well done.
Huh.
Yes.
Again, that's per some active students, so take it with a grain of salt. But
I'm planning on swimming there Wednesday, so hopefully the
they-
fire's gone by then.
they do a practice in like 2 minutes, so I guess they would know.
They really do.
They
Yeah.
would have,
We'll
seen
find
something
out.
Like that.
All right.
But anyways,
Well, speaking of train fires, we're going to skip the men's basketball recap, and we're going to head right to men's tennis. They won 6-1 over Georgia State. Jake, I know you have some thoughts on that, but let's get the other result out of the way.
yes,
They
I
lost
do.
2-5 at Auburn. That one was a rough one. They dropped a couple tough sets in the doubles play, if I remember correctly. But the state one, I think, is where we have more active commenting to do.
The 6-1 score is deceptive and kind of in a bad way. As you all who listen to this probably know by now, doubles is the first thing that happens, right? You got to win 2 out of 3 to get the point. And Tech did get the doubles point, but it was a 7-6, 7-2 in tiebreak on court 1, and that's Andres Martin and Marcus McDaniel, ostensibly one of the better doubles pairings in the ACC, really going up to the wire and making things a little close for comfort there. You had 6-1. That decision on court 2 was actually a 6-1 in favor of State. Not super competitive there from Chokri and Chopra. And then McKinney and Bauer winning 7-5. That's very close for comfort. In the 2 wins, you don't really like that. And, yes, Tech did win 6-1 on the rest of the slate. But Chopra, Sakdev, and Chokri all got wins, but they were in 3 sets and very long 3-setters. Georgia State's 0-3, not really something that you want to see in your own building against a team that, quite frankly, is not as talented as this one.
Jake loves to say that playing at Ken Byers is Georgia State's Super Bowl.
No, I didn't make that up. That's former podcast co-host Ethan Kreger's line.
Well, they both like to say it. I'm going to still hang this one on his head, but it does get rowdy for that one. I mean, it's all parents that most of them know each other. They're all most of them are from in-state, so it does the atmosphere does get a little intense in the indoor courts. It's interesting to see where both of these programs are at, right?
Yeah.
And this keeps happening regardless of if Tech is on an upswing.
Yep.
Or Tech is, say, regardless of where Tech is at, State is always a little
Thorn
hurdle
in their
that
side. Yeah.
It's always a hurdle that they threaten to trip on.
But the thing is, it's not like, baseball or men's basketball where they're, legitimate tournament team, top of the conference type
that
quality,
play in a Costco.
Right? I mean, they don't play in a Costco anymore. Well, I guess
You literally called it a Costco with windows.
that is true. I did call the new place is better than the old place. But you're really undermining me here in the fact that men's basketball and baseball for State are not bad. Their football team competitive in a very good division in the Sun Belt.
We're not taking out that game for granted next year.
No, we're not.
whatsoever.
Scary game coming up.
Yeah.
Very
Too scary. But no, I mean, it's stuff like tennis and softball, women's basketball. It's really never been close, and it honestly shouldn't be. Like it shouldn't be. And 6-1's a little bit, I would say, deceptive. I'm not trying to harp on it, and I know I'm kind of harsh on men's tennis a little bit this year, and I don't know. I don't want to be, but it's kind of is what it is, right? They had a really good weekend for going 0-2 out in Palo Alto, and it's tough to see them kind of play with the food a little bit against. We saw it against Presbyterian, and we kind of see it against State here too.
Anything on the Auburn series?
On the Auburn, I mean, honestly, that was something that was kind of deceptively far the other way. They almost pulled off the doubles win, which would have made it 4-3. And if you're in the mix, you're in the mix, right? So, I think both of these games are deceptive results. Auburn quality, honestly, between Auburn, Pepperdine, and Stanford, you'd think they'd pick up one of the three just based on luck, and I think they got a little unlucky. But they're at, I believe, 6-3, 7-3 on the year, and that's not a bad place to be. Rack up some wins, going to the ACC play strong here. But they do have a tough weekend coming up with South Carolina, UGA, and the Citadel. So between that, you kind of expect a 2-1 or a 1-2, but it's going to be tough to beat those SEC squads.
Let's flip over to the women's side of Ken Byers. Well, technically they were in Illinois this weekend. They picked up 2 wins over Chicago's Big Ten teams. 6-1 over Illinois and 5-2 over Northwestern.
You mean Champagne's Big Ten team?
Chicago's Big Ten teams.
I think there's probably more Wisconsin fans in Chicago than Illinois.
Chicago's Big Ten teams.
Anyways, yeah, Illinois and Northwestern, both historically strong programs. I'd say these are a little bit deceptive in their results as well. Illinois is a pretty good team historically. Northwestern is a pretty good team historically. A lot of the sets were relatively close. But they took care of business on the road. That's exactly what you want to see. And I think they're probably a little bit disappointed not to be in the mix for the ITA indoors. But you win, you get some experience. And this is a team that I think has quite a bit of potential. I mean, they've got more than 6 starting singles players, but in a good way.
Not in the men's basketball way.
I mean, for their singles courts are ranked, which means it's and that's Lee. Jane.
Jane.
Sharabura, I think, is ranked.
Lee, Sharabura, Jane, and Cruz, I think, are the 4.
Cruz, yeah, I know Cruz is ranked.
Yeah.
But between the rest of it, you've got or maybe it's Bilchev that's ranked and Sharabura that's not. But either way,
some combination of the 7 is ranked.
Either
way, 4 of them are ranked.
Either way, you've got Garcia Gross, roster, the other of Sharabura and Bilchev that's not ranked. And Marsh, and that's 4 players for 2 spots. Right?
They roll like 10 deep here.
Yeah, and I think where they'll struggle is in that they've got Lee at the top, who's great, top 10 singles player. Lee and Sharabura as a doubles pairing is really excellent too. But it's just that depth is very good. I just worry about that in a Sweet 16, Elite 8, ACC title. Those kind of. When you're up against a top 5, top 10 team, that's where things are going to get. That's where things are going to get dicey. But take care of business in the ACC, and you're not going to be running into those tougher outs until the Elite 8 or the ACC championship.
Just beat North Carolina. Yeah. LOL.
I don't know if we've done that since I could probably check pretty quickly if we've done that since I've been here. But North Carolina is a pretty excellent program.
Oh my God, he's actually checking.
I am going to check. So if you vamp for a second, I'll pull it up.
I just think they're in for an interesting year because of that depth, though.
Yeah.
To offer a slight counterpoint, because they are right now, you could say that they are competing with some of those top teams in the ACC based on depth alone. Like when you say they have more than 6 starters, right? You're talking about more than 6 ACC quality tennis players, and that is going to make a difference when you have to play with the lineups and futz with your matchups against the UNC, against the Duke, against the Wake Forest.
Well, and you saw something really weird. I think it was against I can't remember which of the teams, maybe San Diego, where San Diego messed with their lineup in a pretty untraditional way for tennis, where they kind of bumped their second court down to 6.
They stacked it.
They did the reverse stack, right? So you're basically trying to guarantee yourself a win on 6, and it took that in order for them to get knocked off. So that's something you can't really prepare. I don't want to say prepare for because that's the wrong way to put it. But anyways, to answer my own question, Tech women's tennis since 2016 has played North Carolina 9 times. They are 2-7. The last win came in 2018, Tech's Final 4 year. North Carolina's been very consistent throughout this span, but that was a 4-3 win on the road, no less.
It was dicey, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 4-3 win on the road in March, and then the year before that, they won 4-3, also on the road. But since then, they've seen them a couple of times, including 3 matchups in the ACC championship, or ACC tournament. 21 was the championship. So.
Very nice. We will be back to preview softball, which gets its season started at the end of this week, right after this short break.
That we will, and we have plenty to talk about this week when it pertains to our favorite merchandise option, the Section 103 Section 103 company. You can't see, but podcasting's a visual medium. Akshay just gave me a very funny face. But anyways, new stuff from Section 103, North Avenue Trade School shirt with the Georgia Tech seal on it. I am a big fan of the seal, and I love the North Avenue Trade School name. It's great to see that out there. It's on navy with a gold print. I think it looks pretty darn good. As always, free shipping on orders over $70 every day. Also, remember to check out baseball and softball shirts, including that 3/4 sleeve, which is a great spring shirt for Atlanta. One last thing is to vote in the poll. I personally am a big fan of option A, Junior's Grill, but
Co-sign on that.
I think it may be a little bit
You don't even know what Junior's Grill is. Well, you know what it is.
We all know what it is. None of us are old enough to. That's not our fault.
So here's my vote.
It's a big shame.
The B design.
If enough of us wear it, then they might bring it back, though.
The Institute would be great.
The Institute design in the style of the Animal House college sweater.
That is good. It's
a classic.
It is classic, and it's very fun. I think it's funny and it's good.
Can Steven give us 2 shirts? Can we just do A and B and just call it a day here?
Do them all.
Come on.
I think they're both pretty close to Insta buys.
They really are.
But the Junior's Grill, I'm gonna take the liberty to take a bit of a left turn because, I feel like it. Georgia Tech controls its dining. And they clearly have a good relationship with the Clemences, given that they have Clemens Kitchen.
Exactly.
And they are featured in the alumni stuff all the
time. They had a recent thing about the French toast or something like that.
They put the French toast recipe in the alumni.
Yeah. Up a tech restaurant called Junior's Grill. It's not that hard.
It needs to happen. I put a whole diatribe on Twitter about it. That needs it gains so much traction, but it needs to happen.
I've
so
done
many
this
views.
many a time.
so many tens of views.
I don't know if I wrote a blog post about it before, but we've definitely talked about it on the podcast.
This will be good off-season content for the blog.
the we won't stop podcasting until we can buy French toast.
We can just go to Silver Skillet for that.
We're still inside the ad read, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Can we leave the ad read? No offense.
Section 103. Go buy it. Anyways.
At Section 103 on Twitter, section103.com. Let's head over to the softball diamond at Shirley Mewborn Clements Field. Mr. Grant, did we call last year a contract year by chance?
We called it the Prove It year, yeah. Oh, yeah. 110%.
No, I think we literally called it a contract year.
Well, I mean, it was.
Did they prove it?
It's the Prove It.
It was the Prove It year, and they proved it.
Sure, yes. They did.
They went Georgia Tech softball 38-18 on the season in 2022, 11-13 in the ACC. They lost in the ACC tournament quarterfinals to Duke in a 9-6 affair and headed to the Gainesville Regional for the first time in
10-ish years, yeah. I think it was
10-ish years. First tournament appearance in 10-ish years.
Was the previous, I think.
Yeah. 3 regimes ago, 3 softball regimes ago.
There were some pretty dark years, 13, 14, 15. But
it was a return to form.
14, 15, 16. Anyways.
It was a return to form because those early 10s, extremely early 10s, GT softball teams were absurd. Absurd.
The one that took on Washington in the ACC or NCAA tournament was program defining, game defining, and it's kind of interesting. We often wind up, I think, kind of oddly lumping volleyball and softball together in terms of vibes. Both hadn't been in the tournament for a while. Just kind of the
women's basketball.
And women's basketball too, but similar places, similar build trajectories. And I think the one that we had noted was women's basketball got there, volleyball got there, and then 2 years later we were still all right, year or two later we were still all right, softball.
Do the thing.
Please. Because 2020, I think, was the first time we reasonably were maybe. And then, But
and I think 21, we saw them start out pretty hot, and we're maybe.
Yeah, they went undefeated in Buzz Classic that year, right, or something like that.
Undefeated in Buzz Classic, and then they ran into the chainsaw that
was
Florida
Central
State.
Arkansas.
Oh, God.
Florida State and Clemson backed same weekend. It was 6 games at once, and
because it was they played the pods. They played regional pods.
Yeah, they were ranked 20.
Okay, yeah.
There was a ton of ACC games that year, and that was the first year the ACC's picked it up in volleyball and softball both at the same time.
They really have.
Another weird parallel.
Yes.
But
narrative.
Anyways, I can't remember which poll had them at number 25. Like they were
Yeah,
ranked.
they got
there.
they won.
Yeah.
They went undefeated in the Bus Classic. They were at 25 immediately after that weekend, and then they got absolutely wrecked
Shellacked.
by. Well, they kept one game in each of those series close. They kept one game. The first game
one or
versus
two,
Florida
yeah.
State. 2 games versus Florida State were
Yeah.
close because one of them went to extras, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then they got absolutely wrecked by Clemson in 3 straight games.
Well, and last year they had
the
that, like-
Valchais.
Yeah. The Valchais. Oh, my goodness.
She's still there.
It's going to be like 2032, and she's still going to be playing. But anyways.
To get to the point, NCAA tournament, Gainesville Regional, first appearance in 10 years. They beat Wisconsin 2-1 in the opening game. They advanced to a game versus Florida, the regional host. They lost 7-1 after a rain delay. So they went to an elimination game versus Wisconsin again.
Yep.
In which they lost on a walk-off 7-6. They
Rough.
just kind of ran out of gas.
Yep, pretty
late
much.
in this one and
Yeah.
had an all-timer of a pitching meltdown, if I remember.
It wasn't good. Yeah, was that Dennis that was pitching that at the end?
No,
or was it,
they,
they go someone else by the end of that game.
No, they melted down. So the problem with this weekend is that they ran Nelliman out there for 3 straight days.
Oh, that's
and
right. Yeah,
her arm could not. I think her arm was just wasted.
There's no way. There's
Not
no way you
wasted is
can
not
go-
the right word. It was just
It
exhausted.
was dead. Yeah, it was dead arm.
It was
yeah.
exhausted by the end of it, and they just could not pay.
Yeah, that makes against Wisconsin. Yeah, you needed
Yeah.
an element to put him down.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't have the exact pitching rotation in front of me, but that's what I remember. Because I remember when we recapped the tournament, we were like, it would be awesome if we didn't have to throw our if we had a third pitcher, so
Yep.
we didn't have to throw our
Yep.
ace for the third game of the weekend again.
And in defense of some of the pitchers who are already on the staff, like Boyles was a freshman. Like that was, I mean,
threw Voiles out there for a while.
yeah, and she didn't get a ton of playing time.
No, I mean
early,
seven's
so.
at most to allow in a regional, still not bad.
Yeah.
Just in any sense, the bats didn't come alive enough there.
I do want to point just how much of a return to form this is. Gents, you do know that Georgia Tech is the second most successful ACC softball program in all of history, right?
Yes.
Now I know.
Yeah, five titles to FSU's much more, 18. But
Wow.
Duke's a relatively young team, as is Clemson, so it's a little bit
Okay.
skewed.
Relatively
there,
young
but
is selling that much.
Like 50
too
years
little.
young, 30
no,
years young.
they're like
Clem-
3.
Three.
Va-
What?
This is their,
Valerie
like-
Cagle has been on every Clemson team that has ever existed.
There's only
there's
3
only
softball
4 of
Clemson
those.
teams that have existed.
Yeah, the first year that they were played was 2020, so they played 12 games.
Wow.
And then the season ended because
Is that what they do instead of swimming nowadays?
Yeah, they cut swim and dive for women's golf, and then later added
They're
softball,
adding lacrosse
women's
too
lax,
soon.
Yeah, lacrosse
and
is coming, yeah.
gymnastics, and they still tried to cut men's track, but
Further from the point we get.
that's a summer episode too, but that's an old trope on the podcast at this point.
So let's talk about the roster to get everyone back on course. Mr. Grant, who do we lose?
Well, Trisha Awald is the number 1 at the top of the list there.
Mhm.
And at first base.
Yeah, she spent 4 years on the flats after transferring from Kennesaw. She was the Atlantic Sun Freshman of the Year that year, and then she came down to Tech and really started basically every game after that. Like
She locked it down at first base.
Yeah, and
really good defensively and just mashed dingers.
Yeah, her and Koff were a great 1-2 punch in the lineup last year, and you know the whole time the two of them have played together. But I would say her and Bailey Zeitler, who played second, were probably the two most notable there. Zeitler was a starter for a couple of years there and played a heck of a lot of the at bats over the last couple of years. Zeitler and Awald definitely got more than the fair share, and not in a bad way.
We
Actually-
needed them to hit. Like
Oh, yeah.
they were the power. Like that had to happen. So
I think you would call
Zeitler was a great fielder too.
Yeah, so you would call Awald your power hitter, and you would call Zeitler your professional hitter, right? Gets
like
on base. The
Yeah.
Moneyball gif of
Mhm.
where Brad Pitt points at Jonah Hill. She gets on base.
Well, and that was the thing about Awald is it seemed like she had the clutch gene too. I know that that's not very statistical, but like
Clutch doesn't exist.
it doesn't. But she delivered in some very big moments, and that was you always knew that she didn't have to be a home run, but big double, seeing the ball, putting it in play. Like that's the thing I think that gets a little bit underrated in the current discourse of baseball and softball is just half the battle is putting the ball in play and not striking out too much. And
someone really likes that the shift doesn't exist.
I do.
Oh
I really
goodness.
like that.
Are we on
Hey,
opposite
it's not
side?
a
Are we
li-
on
it's-
opposite? I'm not against it, but I will miss it. I
Just
will
hit
miss it.
better, lol.
And not to step on what I talked about with Aileen Morales later on, but yeah, pitching was like the main thing.
Yep.
That at least right now, just in general softball at all, I mean, you can be Oklahoma and have also just monster power. But if you can pitch, that solves most of your
mean, that's how
problems right
FSU.
now.
No,
Yeah.
but that's what we saw for us.
Yes.
Not to cut you off on the FSU thing, but like I think it's an even more strong parallel to Georgia Tech, right? We said when we saw Dennis getting added to the roster that was going to be a key to this team having success because Nelliman's a great pitcher, but you cannot throw her until
You can't throw her until the cows come home because that's what happened in Gainesville, and you saw how that worked out.
And that's what happened against like Washington in the Buzz Classic like 3 years ago. That's pre-COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you gotta have another option, and I think we finally saw that with Dennis, who I don't think either of them are like an Oklahoma level ace, and I don't think it's unfair to say
Or
that at all.
FSU.
But it's two very credible, very serviceable options. Nelman's a great ace. Dennis is not far behind her, and it's gonna be a matter of some of the new additions stepping up. I'd say to see if this team can go deeper than what they did last year. But you lose Awald, you lose Zeitler, but I think the expectation stays the same, right? Right.
I
boys?
have no complaints about saying their expectation is to make a regional, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Just to round out the subtractions here, we mentioned Awald, we mentioned Zeitler. That's the entire right side of your infield. Gone, not to the draft, but just gone to graduation. Cowden
Draft.
the Athletes Unlimited draft.
Yes.
Kennedy Cowden in outfield, a transfer from Kentucky. Lexi Ray, a reliever. Palmer Pinholster, another reliever. And then Ariel Jackson, another utility outfielder. Those are all of your subtractions, which in terms of impact, I would say Cowden definitely got a bunch of starts in the lineup and in outfield last year. Jackson was rotational, and Ray and Pinholster were sort of pull the ripcord emergency relievers.
Pretty much.
In terms of high impact starters, the ones like we said, the ones we spent the most time on, you're talking about Awald and Zeitler. So it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason in terms of how
there for people.
There's a lot of at-bats. And just critical fielding, too. Because, I mean, Saleo's got the left side handled down, but that's your entire right side.
Saleo and
She
Black
could
are
probably
very
get the right side.
I know, yeah, she can get all of it if she wanted to, but, like,
Saleo and Black are very good at fielding on that left side of the infield, but you are going to have to figure out both how to put together runs and also how to put together defense.
And I think one of the reasons we saw some success last year, kind of leaving it in this ballpark before we talk about some new additions, in terms of just consistency on that left side, Black and Saleo, and I think I probably should say this with some very firm vigor. Mallory Black played really well. Like,
yes.
She had a great
She had a
sophomore year.
very tough freshman year.
Yes.
To set the stage there.
Which is why I want to be firm in like my praise here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because at multiple points, both you and I looked at each other and were like, why?
She's hitting under 200.
She wasn't
What's
just hitting
going
under
on?
200. She was hitting like 120 for a vast stretch of that year. And we were both like, why? Please play someone else. This is existential dogma playing out on a softball field. Please try something else.
Yes. And just before we get into the super weeds on returners, we've talked about some of them so far. Additions that we see. Transfer Caden Baker, I believe, via Texas A&M. Freshman Jaden Gailey, Rhiannon Keefe.
You just say Ryan in there, I think.
Paige Vukadinovich, Jaden Studebaker, and Reese Hunter. I do know Paige is from Munster, Indiana, so my neck of the woods, I am familiar with the name. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good get. Jack, I know you talked to Coach, so do you have any tidbits, or are we going to save it for the interview?
Paige and Reese were the highlights that she definitely mentioned. Reese has been getting some off-season work with the coaching staff, I know. That's. But I mean, I don't. The context clues will be there. I recorded that interview about a month ago at this point, so the details are a little foggy on my head. But no, I at least definitely remember that Paige and Reese are going to be people she or she's looking forward to seeing what they're going to be. She's looking forward to how the entire team's going to be, but she knows they're going to be impact.
I'm pretty sure that Vukadinovic played for, and I'm absolutely certain of this, that she played for Iowa Premier on their national team as a club softball player, as coming up, and that's a very good program to be recruiting from. There's a couple names out there. I mean, we don't have to list them all, but that's definitely a program with some pedigree. So good to see them making those Midwestern connections.
I will say that Jaden Studebaker is also a pitcher. Notable.
Hey, all right.
But yes, let's go to the returning lineup. Your pitching staff, I think, barring some sort of freshman breakout, is probably going to be Blake Nelman, Chandler Dennis, and Sophia Voiles.
Yep.
Sophia Voiles was very good in limited stints last year, and also emergency relief. So interested to see how that plays out, especially as we've discussed here. You need a pull the ripcord or at least, third rotational starter.
I would have no surprise if Sophia at least pitches a decent amount of Buzz Classic just to see how feasible it is. Like, figure it out or fail early on this one if you're going to fail. Yeah, fail fast and just figure it out. Maybe you start Nelman and Dennis initially, but all right, now we're in the second game on Sunday or Saturday, whatever. All right, throw her out there, see how long she can go, and save everybody else.
I'm glad your business degree has made you an effective startup founder and that you know how to fail fast.
Yes.
Rubber match games, or if there's already 2-0 to Tech, you got to give Voiles some innings just to get her some experience there.
And because you
or
can't.
Whoever
Again, the main point of this season is going to be, do not get into a fight in the Gainesville Regional where you need Blake Nelman to start an entire game and her arm doesn't work.
And then start another game immediately after that one.
Yikes. Let's go over to catcher Emma Kauf, number 8 catcher in the nation.
I don't know how they rank that still. I never figured that out.
Probably backed up by Sandra Beth Pritchett, and also she would be backed up by Reese Hunter.
I was going to say,
yes.
Caroline Davis, I know, is DP. Did she catch it all? I don't know why that's in my head.
I think she played some first base, which is the next place we're talking about. Caroline Davis might be at that first base spot. We don't actually know. I think all of their practices have been closed door.
They post a highlight video, but
they also did those scrimmages in an undisclosed location in Alabama, more or less. So we don't really know. We also don't know who's playing second base.
I forgot to ask about that. We're not going to find out on this
episode. She also would not have told you.
Oh, okay.
She definitely would not have told you. That stuff is nuclear secrets at that point.
What?
Yeah, they take that weirdly seriously. Your shortstop, Jen Saleo, of course. Third base, Mallory Black. Left field, Auburn Dupree. Question mark at center field without Kennedy Cowden. Question mark in right field, too, mostly because I didn't remember who played right field last season.
I mean, Emma Kauf could play out there if needed, but she's played some outfield. But
she'll play some outfield.
That's an example of getting the bats in the lineup, which is something that we'll probably be talking about baseball next week, too. So.
Absolutely. And then Caroline Davis was the designated player last year. But I would assume that that probably goes in the same way that you're talking about getting bats in the lineup. So you'll probably see Hunter.
Yep.
You'll probably see Pritchett. You'll see a rotating cast of characters. You'll see a rotating cast of characters in that spot just to get them in the lineup and get some time.
Yep.
Because some of the people that have been in that spot before are just going to move up to actual stable lineup spots. Let's talk about the Buzz Classic. That is their first matchup, their first tournament of the weekend. Or of the season,
First games.
Excuse me.
First games.
First games of the weekend, first games of the season. North Texas, UConn, St. Francis of Pennsylvania, and Illinois, Chicago. Mr. Grant, tell me about UIC, who we've seen in baseball before, and UConn.
Yeah, so UIC is actually a pretty familiar ACC opponent. A lot of folks on their way up to South Bend will hit them up for a midweeker or something like that. But in terms of the 4 teams, they are listed in order of their rank in the Universal Selection Index, a metric that we here at Scions of the Southland made up in order to better determine the
Scions
tournament
of the Southland, where the numbers are made up and the points don't matter.
But I think it still is indicative. In the last update before the tournament last year, it got every team at large correct except for one. And you want to guess which one that was?
Rutgers.
No.
Wisconsin.
North Texas.
Shut up.
The one I have highlighted in red
that
on the
says
sheet.
nope in red.
I don't read things in red.
Yeah, well, good for you. But North Texas did just miss the tournament field. They were ranked 45 in the country by our metrics, so that probably puts them just out with all the postseason adjustments in. UConn won the Big East last year. They were about 67th in the country. They received the auto bid. St. Francis, also a tournament team. They won the NEC. They were about 153rd. And UIC rounded out the bunch with a 263 rank. Both of the all of those came on probably roughly equivalent schedules. You know, none of them are big major conferences for softball. Softball is very much centered around your Big Ten, your SEC, your Pac-12.
Your heavily stratified entire
Big
national.
12. Yeah, it's very much the Power 5 sport. But yeah, no. In terms of expectations, Tech will get North Texas twice, and I believe UConn twice as well, which means that they gave themselves the hardest possible schedule out of this combination of 4 teams. They'll catch the other 2
Cool with it.
just once. I'm totally fine with it. I think North Texas has got to be your measuring stick, probably pretty obviously, but it'd be really nice to go 6-0 this weekend. I think that would be
huge. That'd be huge.
That would probably get them
necessary
ranked.
start.
Maybe? Question mark?
Yeah, I think
It wouldn't be nothing. It would not be nothing.
dropping UIC, probably bad. Dropping St. Francis, probably pretty bad. Recoverable with the other ones, but, you know, take care of business. You're playing at home. You're playing some good teams, but also some not-so-great teams. But all of them have clearly been there before, or at least in the mix, other than UIC. And you know, UIC is a program that has not historically been as bad as they were last year.
I'll
so.
note there is weather in the forecast on Friday, so this might be and it's going to get cold on Saturday.
Oh,
so
joy.
it's going to be it's going to be delightful the next 3 days in Atlanta, but not during softball, unfortunately.
Yeah, last season also opened on a very weirdly cold weekend.
Yeah.
I think they were wearing like sweatpants and like leggings and everything.
I've played
on the
baseball in
field.
like 45-degree weather. Mobility
It
just
stinks.
goes away pretty much
Oh, yeah.
at that point.
I mean, the ball hits the bat, and you can feel it in your elbows. And
yeah, you basically you should just wear 2 layers of gloves just for when the ball stings your hands because of how you hit it
Jack,
off
I
the
did
bat.
grow up in Chicago, so.
Did you play baseball in Chicago?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
For 12 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You beat
You're
me
from
on that.
Chicago?
And no, it's just a lie. No, I am from Chicago.
Have you heard of the Bean?
Oh, gosh.
Let's talk
Anyways.
about expectations. Let's move over to the expectations. We kind of hinted at it before, but I think the bottom line is that they make the tournament this year again.
Yep.
You have
You
a
have to.
provable model. You have to replace 2 pieces. You have to replace your power hitter and your professional hitter.
Yeah.
But it's doable. So
So
do
get
it
it done.
again. Get it done. I mean, yeah, it's get it done.
Don't lose to a 3 or 4 seed. If you're going to lose in the regional, lose to the 1 seed.
Lose in the regional final to the 1 seed.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a low bar, but I think it's also a realistic bar, right? Only 16 teams make it to super sectional or super regional. So
If you lose to Florida in a Gainesville regional, but in the regional final this time, I don't care.
That's different. Yeah.
I mean, that's
different.
pretty good.
yeah, I mean, the only way they could get any better is they'd either have to upset as a 2 seed or host. And I feel like both of those are pretty challenging things to do.
Right, when we were looking at this last year, I mean, Florida was the 16, I think, right?
I'll
so
pull it up
that would
in
have
my
been
metric.
Florida was the
Sorry.
16, so that means Tech was the best ranked 2 seed, if I remember how that works correctly.
Yeah, I think my model underrated Tech a little bit there. Tech was at 23 in the adjusted RPI, and I had them at 27. Florida, however, was at 13 with an adjusted RPI of 11. Those being your metrics. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's best 2 and worst 1, at least in the numbers, but some of that's geographic and things like that.
So, same question that I've asked for the other teams, and right before we wrap this segment up, what is one thing that they need to do to make it back to the tournament?
Be consistent on the mound.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
I think this team has shown that they can develop good hitters. I mean, we've seen a lot of people grow in their time in the program. You've seen a couple people transfer out, and because of that success, and that's a decision they have to make themselves, but it shows that they can develop that. But in terms of pitching, we've really only seen consistency from Nelliman and Dennis, and it'd be a confidence boost going forward if we can say, hey, one of these folks who's on the roster last year, be it Voiles or whoever, or a new person stepping up and being a credible third, fourth option. And Dennis and Nelliman are only around so long, so either get recruiting or get developing. So.
Literally, they graduate this year.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Both of them.
Yeah.
So figure it out.
Nelliman might get a COVID year.
They both got COVID years, though.
Yeah.
Eligibility
We'll
rules
see
are
how this
dumb.
happens. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. That's the next year's thing.
So did Brambia, and we all know how that worked out.
Yep.
So.
Yep. We do.
Eligibility rules are dumb. You know what's not dumb? Jack's interview with Coach Aileen Morales,
Hope
which
it's
he
not.
will play right now.
This is probably 2 or 3 weeks before we're launching this episode, but with us today is the head coach of Georgia Tech softball, Aileen Morales. Thanks for coming on this lovely day where we hope a particular team in purple wins tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. Yeah, first day of classes, big game, I guess. So we're rooting for a purple team, and just excited to be back. Campus kind of back and busy again, which is nice to see everybody back and out and about.
I was walking my brother's dog on campus earlier today, and it felt good just to see everyone back around. The sidewalks overly clogged, no wiggle room or anything like that. So
absolutely, the sun's out, so I guess it's like 50. I don't know what it was last time, but it felt good.
It's good. It feels it's 51 right now. Yeah, it's a good January Atlanta day. I want to start talking about last year because it was as one of the best years in recent memory for the program. Most wins since 2012. Really good home record between Trisha Awald nearly cracking the top 5 in a bunch of different statistical categories, and McAuliffe being the great leader she is, and Nelliman killing it in the circle. Is there any particular moment or just memory you have from last year that kind of defines the 2022 season for you?
Yeah, I think that there's probably two, I kind of think there's 2 points or turning points, not turning points, but 2 big points in the season where I think kind of elevated and helped our trajectory to where we ended up with being a regional, 38 wins, all those things. One was, the win in Athens on the road, 5 innings, a midweek, and why that was, obviously so special beyond, winning in Athens and clean old fashioned hate was, we had gone through this stretch in conference play where we were like 0-6 or I think the timeline doesn't match up, but basically we went through Florida State, or the timeline's not, clicking in my brain right now, but we had Florida State. We had a couple opportunities to win that game, some of those games in that series, and then Duke. Like both of those series were, where we kind of got our, took our lumps and took a couple, bruises and all that, right? And so we came off of that, and then we go to Athens, and I was like, what are we made of, right? And we go in there and we, just hit the crap out of the ball, played great defense, pitched well, and so I think that was a huge momentum swing. One. After kind of taking some of those lumps, and it was like, look, like these lumps we took in these first games in conference play prepared you to be more ready for this moment on the road. And so that was one. And then the other one, which was cool because it's a win, and it's a win in Athens, and we haven't won in Athens in forever. And so I think that just really changes the mindset of the players when they see that too. It's like, oh, hell yeah, we can do this, right? And then the second part of that is actually it's a series that we didn't end up winning was the trip up to Notre Dame where, we actually ended up losing that series, but, 1 pitch, 1 swing, and we could have walked out of there winning that. And I think that it was just a heavyweight matchup. Each pitch, each inning, I mean, the scores were crazy high and everybody was just punching back and forth. But that was just a big kind of also moment of like, look, man, you can be right in it. And sometimes you don't get what you want. Yeah. And what do you want the rest of the season to be? And I think that really elevated like the trajectory of the rest of the season. From a pitching standpoint as well. And I think our pitchers pitched incredibly well down the stretch after, not that they weren't before, but that was a tough weekend for them. And, the offense and the defense was battling and we were all just trying to like just slug it out. Right. And I think that our pitching matured and grew through that as well. And so those 2 points were, I think, really big moments that propelled us down the stretch and kind of showed us a lot about gut check and what we're made of and how can we respond to that. So, and then obviously like if you're going to say any type of highlight, it's like, I like being at the regional in Gainesville and that's, winning that first game and being able to represent Tech. But I think those 2 moments were huge just from a standpoint of winning, of understanding how to win on the road, understanding what it takes on the road and learning from some failure down the stretch.
Would you put a connecting point between that Notre Dame series and the first Wisconsin game with how close both of those instances were? Because I think I'm pretty sure y'all were underdogs because they were ranked at that for that first Wisconsin game. So that's you've been in that pressure cooker away from home, at least warm weather, not in freezing cold South Bend, but still kind of that kind of a game.
Yeah, I think that experience. Like, there's no there's no substitute for experience. So when you've gone through that already in the season and you've been in those close games, we were in a bunch of close games all year with decent competition, good competition on the road, things like that. But it's like when you've been there, you're not stressed out about it because you're like, oh, like just keep grinding out the at-bats, keep making the plays on defense, like it's going to work out. And so I absolutely think, in that Wisconsin game, it was like, because they could have been like, highs, like we're here, and there's, and we held our own, and we continued to be who we are all year, and so that was cool to see. Absolutely.
Yeah. Transitioning to this year, lose some big names. Freshmen are coming in. Are there any of the freshmen that are exciting you a lot that you maybe expect to get some good innings in this year?
Paige Vukodonovich, she's an outfielder, lefty bat. She's from Iowa Premier Organization, so a pretty strong travel organization. From Munster, Indiana, but plays out of that program. She had a really great fall, in our fall games and stuff. Just competitive at bats, really great job. Just continuing to find ways to get on and come up in clutch moments. So I don't want to hype her up too much. I don't want to put too much pressure on her as a freshman, but I was really impressed with how she just never looked like the moment was too big for her. And I think that's exciting to see as a freshman. She's an outfielder, and she'll give us some depth. As you know, we graduated out some outfielders. So just kind of fitting all those pieces together. So really excited about her. And also just really excited about Reese Hunter, who is a catcher out of Mojo organization. She's actually, I think, Roswell High School. Really great quality catcher, receiver behind the plate, great arm. She can hit the crap out of the ball too. And so that's going to give us some more depth behind the plate with Emma as well. With Emma getting older into her career, trying to save her legs as much as we can too, and provide, more opportunities to work with the lineup. Because, Emma's just such a phenomenal athlete that you got to put her somewhere on the field if she ain't behind the plate. So just that I'm excited about her. Jaden Gailey is a great bat as well for us. She's out of I think Franklin High School, again, Mojo organization. So we've got some really good lefty bats. So coming in, and excited about her as well. Just kind of filling in pieces. But I think those would probably be the top three. And then we got Hayden Baker, a transfer out of Texas A&M. She's also from the Mojo organization, but she's a lefty hitter, good speed, can play infield or outfield. So just another versatile athlete that I think she had over 100, 130 at-bats her freshman year at A&M. So excited to have her as well.
When you're building out a roster not from scratch, because you always have your carry-ons from the previous year, but when you're plugging in holes, do you see it as plugging in holes, or do you take see what you got any given year and see what might work best in tandem with the team you already have? Does the approach change year to year for how you fill out the roster?
Well, I think one, like what we want players like to have to fit our offensive philosophy, which, is we don't ever really have just straight up power hitters. Like we want people who can hit for extra bases, whether that's doubles and, can spray it out of there every now and then. But, and then we want versatile athletes that we can put in, motion. So part of our, offensive approach also is stealing bases, those types of things. So for us, it's looking at athletes that fit that mold, that are good quality defensive players as well, that kind of fit into that mold. And then how does that fit with what the lineup or the returners are? But I mean, if they're versatile, that gives us plenty of opportunities, plenty of options. Or it's like, Grace Conley was a freshman who played a ton of innings for us last year, right, at second, but then she was also playing right field.
Right.
Did I ever see her play right field before she got to Georgia Tech? No. But, was that a way to get another bat in the lineup? Yes. So for us, it's about what are you doing? Are you fitting what we need offensively? And how, if you're athletic and versatile enough, can we put all those pieces together? To answer your question, I mean, there's certain positions. Pitchers, you always got to replace pitchers.
Yep.
You're like, I need that. Catchers, your middles. But, when you talk about building a full roster, do they athletically fit what we want for our offense and in our philosophy?
That's cool. Also, I was a lefty growing up playing baseball, so I'm always a little akin to that.
We got a lot of lefties. I mean, we were looking at it, and I'm like, Lord, I need to recruit a couple more righty hitters because I love a lefty hitter, righty thrower. But I was like, okay, we don't have any righty bats in this lineup,
Yeah,
right? Like we were like projecting out. I was like, oh gosh, we could have like 8 lefties, and we might need a righty. We might need a couple righties depending on what the matchup is, right?
Might be worth bringing the fences in a couple feet this year.
I don't know. They're already close enough. The pitchers might kill me.
And talking about the ACC as a whole, I mean, I think generally in women's sports, like just the whole not the value, but just the talent level across everything is getting better. I mean, this year's volleyball was incredible for Tech, and then as a whole,
Absolutely.
was an extremely watchable sport. Softball is getting more and more viewers every year. I mean, having a big gun like Oklahoma out there to kind of draw attention is good, but everything is just trending upwards. In the ACC in particular, is there anything that you've noticed that is a big key to being successful in the conference? And if so, is that something that you think you're good at, or is that something y'all got to keep working on?
Well, I mean, it's with in softball, it starts with the circle. You know, I mean, if you have good arms, it's going to keep you in every game. And I think that was the number one goal last year was we had to have our pitching staff improve, and we definitely did. And that's where you see that success. Some of that success come from is just being in every game, because what we had in the circle, the arms we had in the circle, Blake, Chandler, whoever else we pieced together, like they kept you in everything, and you didn't have to worry about like, is there going to be some big inning where we're down, right? And it wasn't about having to out hit people. So I think that anytime you have quality pitching, which is what most of our conference is, I mean, there's not any easy arms on any team, really. I mean, you're going to get a great arm on any opponent, and some of them 2 and 3 great arms on their staff. And so one, it starts and ends in the circle, in my opinion. And then I think that the model that's really well is, you know, having good offensive production, on base hitters, and people who can, you know, hit for power somewhere in the middle of your lineup, which is, you know, basic, you know, probably softball or baseball 101. But the programs that are the most successful have probably 1 or 2, you know, horses in the circle. And then they got, you know, a couple of people who are putting, you know, 15 plus home runs up a game, right? Or a season. So I think for us, the more we can develop some more power, but again, part of what our strategy is a little bit of small ball, a little bit of power, like balance. So, you know, we can, you know, continue to keep those doubles numbers up. That puts us in a great position to be real successful against anybody in our conference.
Yeah, let's shift to pitching then, because I mean, Chandler and Blake do a lot of the work here. Sophia Voiles filled in a good role last year as well. Is she in a sense your number 3 going into this year?
Yeah, I think so. She's looked great. She's come a long way. You know, in a full year and a half-ish, right, as she's going into this second season, and she's grown and matured a lot, got stronger, and so just excited. We'll definitely use her. She'll have more opportunities, more innings. And I think, you know, she got that experience at the regional, and maybe wasn't exactly the experience she wanted. Maybe, you know, they didn't have, like, when we ended, it wasn't probably the most favorable way to be out there on the mound. But, you know, you grow from that and you learn from that, and that propels you to into your next season. And so I've been real excited about her and how she's looked in fall games. Chandler threw amazing in our fall games, Blake threw great. And so I'm excited about that. And then, you know, Kinsey Norton didn't throw as much for us last year, nor did Emma Mangini, but they'll get some innings for us as well, because they're just different looks and different matchups. So probably I don't know. I probably say this every year, but I feel like this year I'm the most excited about the pitching staff, just the way that everything, the way that the combos work and how we can mix and match and things like that. So yeah.
Do you have a starting 9 that you think you're really comfortable with right now, or is that still something through Buzz Classic you're gonna have to work through?
Yeah, Jack, you'll probably have to ask me, you know, give me a couple more weeks. I'll have little bit of a better layout.
It is early.
You know, there's, you know, we haven't had one team scrimmage yet. We've been out there a couple days, but I think the big thing is, you know, obviously you've got a good bit of experience returning. So there's some positions that are, you know, I'm not going to say they're 100% set, but they're pretty much, you know, locked in. And so then it's like, okay, but how do we put the best offensive lineup together with a very strong defensive lineup? And so there's, you know, again, like we said, some people might be working reps in outfield, and then sometimes they're, you know, in the infield. So I think that's the biggest piece of it, is because we're versatile athletically, or we have a lot of versatile athletes. It's piecing that together in what combination. You know, first base is still going to be something that it'll work through, probably Buzz Classic, and probably the first couple of weeks until somebody really solidifies that, just because Trish played that for 4 years, right? And so, we've got to provide opportunities, and we've got to try different combinations, and even January in our team segments, like a lot of that stuff's gonna start becoming, I think, clearer. And I think that, again, part of that's going to depend on matchups as well. Who are we facing? Who's the best hitter for that? All those things come into play. But left side of the field will be pretty consistent. Emma will be catching. All those usual suspects back out there. Jen at short. I mean, she's a walking highlight reel. So just continuing to, and that's what's cool. The experience this year is like, we've got juniors and seniors. We've got people who, played together 2-3 years. And now it's like, let's get after it. You've got that experience. You know what it takes to get to a regional. Let's build and see how much farther we can take that.
I asked Michelle Collier the same question. In the locker room, obviously the older folks are going to be closer to your captains in a sense, or just the experienced folks. Is there a couple people that, just even if there isn't like a specific label applied to them, you're like, okay, these are your team leaders, that the younger folks are naturally gravitating to just for, I guess, how to get through tech, or just how to just go through a season like this?
Yeah, I think Emma Calf is, Emma is like not only on the softball field, but just in life. Like she's like a model citizen. It's like insane, all the amazing things she does. It's impressive. And doing great in class, and being great on the ball field. So Emma's definitely a leader for us. We haven't listed captains, but Emma, and then Chandler Dennis as well has been great. And I think that there's different people who lead in different ways, and that's what I think is cool is I take care of each other, and try to help each other out, because I think different personalities mesh with different people, so you can't just have only a few people. Grace Conley also has done a great job, and I know you guys follow the hockey team. Her brother is a pretty dang good hockey player. Yeah. So Matt, but Grace has been great as an underclassman kind of leader, and Jen as well. So those are probably the four, not main, but the four that continue to kind of propel those things and manage the locker room and kind of keep the team in on the right path, right?
Yeah. That's cool. I want to shift to Allison Fabry, because she's a recent player now, volunteer coaching with y'all. Has she, in the limited time she's had here, what kind of impact has she made as someone who's been on the field and had to feel a lot of these same situations that all your girls have had to face?
Yeah, I mean, Allison's been a great addition to our staff. Great offensive mind. She's working with Reese and the hitters pretty consistently in all those hitting segments, and then she mixes in with me working with the defense. But just has been really cool, really great addition to the staff. Knowing her playing experience, her being an All-American, her playing for Canada. I mean, she's still in it, competing, right? And so her, starting on her coaching journey, but still playing. It's been great, and I think she's been a wealth of knowledge for our girls, and has brought a ton of value to our staff, just from looking at hitters or assessing hitters, giving different ways to implement drill segments and things like that. Her and Reese work very well together, and so that's exciting. And she's not from far away, Peachtree City, and is where she's from. I think Stars Mill was where she played high school ball. So it's kind of crazy, how all those things fall into place. But she's been phenomenal, and she'll coach first base for us in season. So just really excited that she's joined us, and humbled that she's joined our staff.
Nice. For you, beyond just the basic box score, are there any extensive analytics that you like using to help you make decisions at all? I mean, there's plenty of baseball, softball, the easiest sports to just get almost too much data on, just because of how segmented it is. Is that something that you do, or is it mostly eye test and box score?
For me, like when I'm scouting, there's certain things we're looking, but when we're making in-game decisions, I mean, there's Reese is a data junkie, so she does a phenomenal job of matchups and knowing from a pinch hitting standpoint, or different things like that. Who we think the best matchups are based on what the opposing pitchers throw, and everybody I'm sure does that in different variations, but I think it's one of her strong suits is just really understanding our hitters' strengths and weaknesses and putting them in the best position to be successful. Advanced metrics, like I use weighted on base average just when I'm evaluating, lineups and what we're trying to. I also look at, splits. So, what's the pitchers. I don't use crazy sabermetric stats because I'm not smart enough, but like I'll use
VORP or zone
I just
ratings.
don't think. No, there's not, truthfully, like in softball too. I don't know how accurate that data is versus baseball. You have so much more data stuff to pull from, and got majors and all that, but major league and all that, but and the minors and all that. So they track stuff a lot better than we do in our sport, unfortunately. But a lot of it sometimes it's just lefty righty splits based on runs allowed, and like what is the opposing pitcher, how well does she do against these, and that's how we build lineups and things like that. So we use a lot of different companies that do some of that stuff, 643 charts, Sequencer, we use Synergy, all different things. But for me, there's definitely a component of like, I want to know these things, I want to know this data, but then in game it's like you don't want it to overwhelm you, so we use it to a certain extent, and it's like, all right, like what is the feel? You gotta balance it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, there's
what about you got a favorite
a favorite sabermetric? Oh man, I mean, I do enjoy WAR for how simple it is and how it just gets you all that in one shot. I remember the 2020 World Series when Kevin Cash pulled, I forgot what pitcher at the very end, because the sabermetrics just said it's the time to pull him, and he was on a one hitter against the Dodgers, and they lost the World Series. So
so that's always like the balance, right?
I get your point there of like, there's at some point you've got to weigh just the moment and the
gut, right?
The part you can't measure.
Yeah, and that is, it's like that data does give you this. It's telling you over this course of time, more times than not, this is the right move. But that doesn't mean that right here in this moment that has to be the right move, right? And so I think that's the challenge as coaches, is like how to balance that. And defensive efficiency rating is something I kind of track too, but I don't know how much they I mean, it just helps with where we are, and actually presented at our coaches convention earlier at the end of the year, and we was talking about that, and we were actually ranked like 10th in the country in defensive efficiency rating, which nobody would know because everybody uses fielding percentage, and I think fielding percentage is trash. It's like the worst metric ever because it depends on who's scoring it. So it was just cool to like kind of dive into some of those numbers and stuff, and just see where the best of the best are, which like Oklahoma was like insane where their numbers were like, which they're like in a league of their own right now, it feels like. So
it happens. I mean, I'll also ask about NIL, because I'm sure Oklahoma's got that rolling up their sleeves at this point. How have you approached that so far? I mean, it's young. The Tech Way just began as the collective, so still very early on in it, and you're one of the teams that's got much more American players compared to like volleyball and swimming, where they're all over the world. But just how have you approached this so far?
Well, I haven't really done much with it because I really can't from what I've been told. But, I think that's one of those things where it's like, I want them, if there's an opportunity for them to, take advantage of, the time that you're here, because we don't have a pro league really. There's, there's Athletes Unlimited, but that's a small window.
Yeah.
I think why would our female student athletes not take advantage of opportunity to, make some extra cash or learn honestly entrepreneurship. So I know there's some players who do have some deals. The extent of that I don't know enough about. I don't really ask them. I kind of stay out of it. But I think moving forward as our collective, and as we have a clearer system now with new admin and JBAT, maybe there'll be some more opportunities to be more involved in a way that I'm allowed to. I'm not breaking any rules. But I think it's an exciting time for college athletes, and specifically female student athletes, because this is a small window for them, and if they can help reduce expenses, because we're not a head count sport, not everybody's on full rides. Like if they can help reduce those expenses, and God, why would we not? So I'm excited about what the future holds with what we're doing here at with the new collectives and the Tech Way. So looking forward to how we can expand on that.
I'll be on the lookout for t-shirts with the names on the back or something like that.
We got to get in on that. I mean, there's plenty of female entrepreneurs and companies around, Atlanta that, you can I think we can tap into. It's, just a matter of getting the ball rolling on that and really executing that plan.
Yeah. You mentioned Jay Batt. Have you gotten the chance to talk to him in his first couple months on campus? I want to say first impressions,
definitely.
but do y'all have a good working relationship at this point early on?
I've had an opportunity to speak with him. I know that he's been, from the time he was hired, he had a lot of
he had a little big decision to make up front.
Yeah, he was tasked with some big decisions, and I think as we're rolling into season and as he's probably got a little bit better cadence for him, he's got that stuff checked out. We'll have more opportunities to connect, but all that stuff was going on. And there was the holidays, so we've connected a couple times, but excited about his leadership and excited about what he's trying to do for the program or for all of our programs. But I think that for us, right now I'm in softball mode, and if it's not softball mode, I'm on a whole nother, it's tunnel vision a little bit. But yeah, I think great things are ahead and the future's bright. So just excited to see, and Coach Brent Key, getting to take the reins. I always love an alumni as a head coach. So, I'm biased, obviously. So, just looking forward to seeing what he'll do when he can, build his program how he wants to. And so, yeah, I just excited about what's next.
Nice. Last question. Just what's the goal this year? What is it? Is it a round in the NCAA tournament? Is it effort based? Like, what's if there's one box you got to check? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I also, for us, we're competing for a conference championship, and I think if we do some things correctly, we've scheduled tough, we've scheduled challenging in preseason to help prepare us for that. And I think we have a quality roster, and that if we play well and if we build things the right way, like we've got a chance to compete for that. So I want to make it farther in the conference tournament. I want to make it into that conference championship because I think that that's a realistic expectation if we take care of business. And yeah, I mean, regional for sure, but we want to try to win that thing. We want to be in a position where each year we're climbing farther. And I think that we pull from our other sports. You saw Nell do it. You saw Michelle do it. Like these are their peers. These are people they're in class with, and they see those programs doing that. And so there's no reason why we can't take that next step. And so, would I say if we don't go win a regional that it wouldn't be a good year? Oh, but those are those high level goals that you're working towards. Yeah.
Awesome. Tech softball gets going Friday, February 10 with a doubleheader against UConn, at least according to RamblingWreck.com. I assume that's correct.
Yes.
As part of the Buzz Classic with North Texas, St. Francis, UIC, and another North Texas game. Alrighty. There'll be a lot of different colors on the field that weekend. That'll be fun. So, anyways, Aileen Morales, thanks a ton for coming on. It was a good time talking.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Jack.
Welcome back. Great interview, Jack. But now we turn the page.
I love how we all listened to this a month ago, and now we're just saying it's good.
Yeah.
Just assuming it's good.
I'm sure it's great.
I think we did all right.
I read the transcript, I think.
I listened to it.
Let's switch over to the pool. Well, we're going to
rock
about
it
the
right
pool.
past that.
We're going to drop right past that. You said it was a very uneventful week in Auburn.
It's kind of a last chance meet for folks looking for cuts, consideration for the ACC lineup and all that. I don't believe any NCAA consideration cuts were made. No records. I don't even know if scores were posted because I didn't see them when I checked. But, no first or second place finishes. I'm telling you, I really looked up and down and left and right to be like.
You got to taper when you can, so may as well.
Exactly. This is the last chance meet for a couple folks. And, it was interesting just in terms of, in the past we've kind of done like our own last chance meet, and it's been like weirdly attended. So I'm kind of glad that they at least went over to Auburn.
Yeah.
Got Florida State, got Florida,
They got
Auburn,
uncomfortable. They traveled on the road.
Yep.
Emory.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's flip over to track. They were in Columbia for the South Carolina invite.
Yep. On the track headline this week by Charlie Smith. I believe this is the first time we've mentioned him on the podcast, so congrats there. He won the mile with a 4:06:39. There were a ton of teams here, a couple national team athletes from other countries, a couple pros. Track meets are weird. So Charlie coming out at the head of the field is pretty good to see. Also had Shanti Papacosta, Jameer Gibson, and Omar Aran out getting second in their events. Those were all on the field, interestingly. High jump, shot put, and high jump, respectively. A couple third-place finishes for Taylor Grimes, Katie Hamfelt, and Leif Anderson. Leif Anderson also in the mile, shouting that out. So Smith and Anderson went 1-3 against, like I said, pretty crowded field. So good to see.
Interesting results there. Let's round out with club sports. Georgia Tech hockey drops a 2-1 decision in an outdoor Athens game in what can only be described as a barn with an ice rink in it.
Yes.
I watched the live stream for a little bit, and it did look like that. So
Barn and an ice rink. Barn with an ice rink in it. Anyway.
a metal barn, though. It looked like a good barn.
A metal barn.
It was
A sturdy barn.
It looked like a barn that wouldn't fall over. I don't know. Is that even good, worth mentioning?
I don't trust their engineering. Moving on to the number 2 Georgia Tech men's
Were there
lacrosse
columns in the
program.
middle of it? Sorry, I had to get that one in.
Georgia Tech men's lacrosse program 13-10 win at Auburn, which was a comeback, a halftime comeback down from not 6-3 at half, but they were down 6-3 at
in
one
the first
point.
half. They were
In the
down
first
6-3.
half. And then a 23-4 absolute demolition of Vanderbilt.
I think it was 23-4. I didn't really bother to double check.
It was
the
a lot
score
to a little.
because
It was like Bedlam.
uh,
Georgia Tech is going to win by a little, or Georgia Tech is going to win by a lot.
It was
Anything can
23-4.
happen.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, it got out of hand early, and I wish I could say more. I didn't think it would be this much of a wampin, but Tech's the number 2 team in the country for a reason. I don't think that's been publicized out there enough, but they could very well be in the mix to win it all at the end of the year. And the weird thing is, the number 1 team in the country is also in Columbia, so not that far away.
And that was, I think Tech's only lost last year.
Did they lose to them in the tournament? I can't remember. Maybe that was Brigham Young? I don't know.
They
They lost close in the tournament to someone, but I think they lost to South Carolina in the regular season too.
Something like that. And then Georgia Tech Swim Club to round us out was at Knoxville, and apparently you don't have results for me.
No, I just got asked by someone if I was going to mention them on the podcast this week, and I was like, do you have results? And they're like, no. So they get a mention, but no idea how they did.
I still wear my national team cap when I swim all the time, so,
New rule, no results, no mention.
Good call.
I'm a little biased. It's fine.
I think that about wraps it up for us.
Boys, I got a really quick fun fact for you. It's very quick.
Be swift.
Table of titles. Name the 5 most successful by number of titles programs in Georgia Tech history. This is only ACC, so don't think about SEC titles in 1940. I want you guys to trade off guesses, but I want the top 5.
ACC titles.
Yeah.
Softball.
That's number 3. They have 5.
Tennis,
Which one?
women's.
Women's. That's number 4. They have 4.
We went for 3 and 4 first. Wow. Okay.
Okay. Men's swim and dive.
No, they have 0.
Womp womp.
I know volleyball has 1 at least.
Volleyball's got 2.
They
They
got
are
2? Okay.
outside of my
Outside the
list.
5 though. Okay.
Yeah.
We're running out of sports.
Women's basketball.
Women's basketball also has 0.
They don't have any.
I'm going to make you stop guessing if you guess another 0. So think about this one.
Men's
real
basketball
hard.
we know has 1.
Men's basketball has 4.
There we go.
They are tied for 4th, so that's your 5th place team.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so now we just
There's
have to
2
get 1
left.
and 2. Easy.
They're the 2 best teams in ACC play in Georgia Tech history. ACC
You're gonna have to
tournament play.
name your least favorite sport.
It's not them. There's no way.
It's not football.
Oh,
Yeah,
never mind.
it's not
really.
them.
It's not. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Are you
And
gonna
we
look
already
at-
named-
Do you want a hint?
Yes.
Bobby Jones.
Oh, damn
golf.
it.
Golf is number 1.
Golf
Yeah.
has 18 ACC
Yeah,
That
I
makes
titles.
forgot.
boys.
That
I
makes
forgot.
sense.
I
That
forgot.
makes sense.
It's not more than everyone else combined, but
It's close.
it's a lot.
I
Give
know
us the
why I
2.
didn't think about it because when I think about the sports, I just put the map of Tech in my head, and guess who's not on Tech's campus?
That's fair.
Golf.
Well, technically, Noonan was next to where the old softball stadium was.
Yeah. And it's where the student competition center is. Anyways, there's 1 left. Jack, take one more guess.
Take one more guess. Does this sport still exist on campus?
It still exists. They're Tech's second most followed team on Twitter.
Oh.
Baseball. Yeah.
It's baseball.
Oh yeah. We're so thick in the weeds of just the nitty
Yeah.
gritty.
We're
we
so-
lose, we
we're-
lose the big
They
picture
have 9
sometimes.
ACC titles.
pretty darn
They're
good.
We're
pretty
too sicko.
Yeah.
Unhealthy levels of sicko.
I think that one's that's one worth knowing for the people. I think putting it in
Especially-
perspective.
Especially
Good.
considering that baseball preview episode is next week.
Next week, indeed.
Yeah.
We'll have some audio for you there as well, but I think that about wraps it up for us from Wild Heaven Brewing.
Yeah,
Mr. Grant.
I'll take us out. Just to round out the other tech teams with ACC titles, you've got football, that is 3, volleyball with 2, and women's indoor track and field with 1. Anyways, rounding things out from Wild Heaven Brewing, thanks to Wild Heaven for hosting us. Always appreciate that. Thanks as well to Section 103, our favorite apparel provider. And yes, I looked at Akshay for that. You can find them at Section 103 on Twitter, section103.com. They've got a great new shirt out. Go vote in their poll. We have opinions, and so should you. They have great merch, and that we can all agree on. You can find From the Rumble Seat at FromTheRumbleSeat.com. We put up articles with this here podcast that you can comment on and give us feedback. You can also read other articles. Great content. A lot of women's basketball and non-rev sports these days. It's me and Jack holding down the fort.
Yep.
We got to. You know, it's February. But, yeah, you can also find us from the Rumble Seat at gmail.com. Send us things. We love your feedback, and we really appreciate it. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog. Jack and I are at Jack Nicholas and at JakeGrant98. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at From the Rumble Seat, and you can find these podcasts wherever fine podcasts are sold. Rate, review, tell your friends. We really appreciate it. And good night from Wild Heaven one last time. Good luck, and go Jackets.
Praise